What if I told you that your brain is operating at just a fraction of its potential? Not because you're getting older, and not because you're not smart enough, but because modern life has systematically disrupted your neural optimization systems. Today we're diving into the cutting-edge science of cognitive enhancement and mental wellness. We'll explore how your gut bacteria influence your mood, and how exercise literally grows your brain, and how your biochemistry, like peptides, can restore mental clarity, and how quantum biology is revealing that our brain is beautifully arranged and energetically orchestrated by a force we're just beginning to understand. We'll also uncover the deep science behind consciousness and how your subconscious posture can affect your physiological health, either positively or negatively. And here's the best part. Everything we're discussing today is backed by rigorous scientific research and represents legitimate approaches to optimizing brain health. Before we get started, I want to say that none of this content here is medical advice, and I am not a physician, and I do get things wrong. I use the assistance of AI to research and produce, and AI can also make mistakes. That said, all of my sources are cited, and those that are hypothetical or theoretical, like much of physics and biology is, are clearly labeled in the sources. If you wish to speak to a provider who's qualified and licensed to talk about these types of things as it pertains to your unique situation, go to renewwellnessclub.com. Share this video with a friend and hit the like button to help out a disabled veteran-owned small business. I'm your host, Nicholas Kadzillo, so let's get things kicked off. I'd like to start with a sobering reality. Loss in cognitive function doesn't mean that your neurons are dying, but it can mean that they're not communicating effectively anymore. Think of your brain as a sophisticated network of 100 billion neurons, making 100 trillion connections. When this network functions optimally, you'll experience mental clarity, sharp memory, and emotional resilience. But modern life has created what I call a perfect storm for cognitive decline. Chronic stress has downgraded your BDNF, that's your brain-derived nootropic factor, essentially your brain's growth hormone. Poor sleep has impaired your synaptic plasticity, the ability of your brain cells to form new connections. Inflammation is slowing your neural firing speed. Environmental toxins have damaged your blood-brain barrier, the protective shield that keeps harmful substances out of your brain. And information overload has exhausted your neurotransmitters. The result? Brain fog that makes you feel like you're thinking through molasses. Memory gaps that leave you searching for words mid-sentence. Happens to us all the time, right? Anxiety that seems to come from nowhere. An inability to focus that makes deep work feel impossible. Mental exhaustion that coffee can no longer fix. But here's what most people don't realize. These aren't permanent conditions. They're reversible disruptions in your brain's optimization systems. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating discoveries in neuroscience, your second brain. I'm talking about your gut, which contains roughly 100 trillion microbes that directly influence your mental health. This isn't pseudoscience. This is peer-reviewed, groundbreaking research changing how we understand mental wellness. Recent studies from 2024 and even this year, 2025, have shown that gut-brain axis, the bidirectional superhighway of communication between your digestive system and your brain, affects everything from your mood to your memory. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Certain gut bacteria produce the exact same neurotransmitters that antidepressants target. We're talking about serotonin, GABA, and dopamine, all manufactured in your gut. Research has found that people with depression have distinctively different gut microbiome profiles. Even more remarkable, when research performed recall transplants from depressed individuals into healthy mice, those mice developed depressive-like behaviors. Think about that. Depression can be transmitted through your gut bacteria. The key is creating an environment where beneficial bacteria can thrive. This means feeding them with prebiotics, non-digestible fibers found in foods like garlic, onions, and artichokes. It means reducing inflammatory foods that disrupt your gut barrier. And it means that understanding that every meal you eat is either supporting or sabotaging your mental health. Now let's talk a bit about exercise, something that few want to do, but is extremely important. In fact, one of the most important things. If exercise came in a pill, it would be the most prescribed medication in the world for brain health. And I'm not talking about just feeling good after a workout. I'm talking about measurable, structural changes in your brain. Here's what happens when you exercise. Your brain immediately starts producing BDNF, that brain growth factor I mentioned earlier. Studies show that in just 5 days of voluntary exercise can significantly increase hippocampal BDNF levels. Some mice in research studies run up to 20 kilometers a night on their wheels, and their BDNF levels correlate directly with the distance they run. But it's not just about BDNF. Exercise triggers a cascade of neuroplastic changes. It promotes dendritic sprouting, which is essentially growing new branches of your brain cells. It enhances synaptic plasticity, allowing your neurons to communicate more efficiently, and it supports neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, something we used to think was impossible in adult brains. Here's something fascinating. Exercise produces a molecule called beta-hydroxybutyrate, a ketone body that acts as a natural HDAC inhibitor. In simple terms, it unlocks the expression of genes that promotes brain health. This is one of the mechanisms explaining why exercise is so powerful for cognitive function. The research on exercise and depression is particularly compelling. Multiple studies show that exercise can be as effective as antidepressants for mild to moderate depression. And unlike medications, exercise enhances overall brain structure. MRI studies show that regular exercise increases the volume of both the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory, and several cortical regions involved in executive function. But here's the key. The optimal dose matters. Research from 2024 suggests that moderate intensity exercise, about 150 minutes per week, optimizes BDNF and neuroplasticity, particularly in people with depression. You don't need to be an ultramarathoner. In fact, excessive exercise can increase cortisol and potentially be counterproductive. The sweet spot is consistent and moderate activity that you can sustain in the long term. And now I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is food as medicine, specifically as it pertains to our brain health. Of all the dietary patterns studied, the Mediterranean diet has by far the most robust evidence for mental health benefits. It's no wonder why there's so many blue zones where people live much longer in the Mediterranean area. And when I talk about improvements, these aren't just marginal. I'm talking 40 to 45% lower odds of moderate to severe depressive symptoms. The Mediterranean diet works through multiple mechanisms. Firstly, it's incredibly anti-inflammatory. The omega-3 fatty acids from fish, the polyphenols from olive oil and colorful vegetables, and the fiber from whole grains, that is, grains that aren't poisoned with glyphosate and bromate from Roundup, all of these components work synergistically to reduce neuroinflammation, which we now know is a key driver of depression and cognitive decline. A landmark Australian study followed people from depression who adopted a Mediterranean diet, supplemented specifically with fish oil. After just 3 months, the Mediterranean diet group showed significantly greater reduction in depressive symptoms, and it improved mental health quality of life scores. These improvements were sustained in just 6 months. Increased vegetable diversity, nut consumption, and legume intake all correlated with reduced depression. The study found that positive correlations between increased omega-3, decreased omega-6, and improved mental health outcomes. But it's not about just what you add to your diet. It's also about what you should remove. Research from 2024 found that trans fat consumption was significantly associated with increased depressive symptoms. This should be no surprise. People with high trans fat intake had depression scores nearly 60% higher than those with low intake. So here's some practical framework. Try to fill your plate with lean meats, colorful vegetables, and fruit. Aim for at least 7 servings a day. Prioritize fatty fish from salmon, mackerel, and sardines at least twice a week. Use extra virgin olive oil as your primary fat. Include nuts and seeds daily. Enjoy legumes several times a week. and minimize processed foods, especially those containing trans fats and added sugars. Doing this consistently can provide an entire metabolic reset that makes you feel more energetic, more clear, and able to address the stressors of everyday life. Now let's discuss something at the cutting edge of cognitive enhancement, peptide therapy. These aren't stimulants that force your brain to work harder. Think of stimulants as pressing harder on a gas pedal of an engine that is already in need of a repair. Peptides, on the other hand, they actually repair the engine so that it runs more smoothly. Cognitive peptides are naturally occurring or bioidentical compounds that optimize neurological function at the cellular level. They work through several mechanisms. The first is neuroplasticity enhancement. Peptides can increase BDNF and nerve growth factor production, promote dendritic sprouting, and enhance synaptic plasticity. This means that your brain can become more adaptable, more capable of learning, and more resilient to stress. Secondly, neurotransmitter optimization. Rather than flooding your system with neurotransmitters like traditional medications, peptides help balance and optimize your natural production. They modulate dopamine for motivation, regulate GABA for calm focus, and can optimize acetylcholine for memory. They also can balance serotonin for our mood. We're finding that the uses and mechanisms are so broad scope, they can touch almost every part of our system, including our brain, and it's no wonder because these are the compounds that exist in us naturally, the mechanisms that turn on and off certain functions in our body. The third benefit is neuroprotection. Certain peptides reduce oxidative stress. They can decrease neuroinflammation and improve mitochondrial function. And we all know from 5th grade science that's the energy powerhouse of your cells. Another aspect of that neuroprotection factor is enhancing the blood-brain barrier integrity. Another benefit is cognitive enhancement. Studies show improvements in processing speed, working memory, mental flexibility, and executive function. Clinical observations show a progressive timeline of benefits. In the first week, neurons begin communicating more efficiently. Brain fog starts to lift, and focus periods extend naturally. By weeks 2 to 4, new synaptic connections can form. Memory consolidation improves, and anxiety levels decrease. After 2 to 3 months, people report consistent mental clarity. Throughout the day, easier complex problem solving, and increased creativity. Long-term use of cognitive enhancing peptides appears to build cognitive reserve and slow age-relating decline. It's crucial to understand that peptide therapy requires medical supervision. These are prescription treatments that need proper selection and monitoring. When used appropriately under medical guidance, they represent a powerful tool for cognitive optimization. Now, here's something I want you to understand. Cognitive health isn't about finding a magic bullet. It's about orchestrating multiple interventions that work in concert with each other. Think about it as a symphony where each instrument plays a crucial role. Your gut microbiome is like the biochemical foundation. It influences neurotransmitter production, inflammation levels, and even the integrity of your blood-brain barrier. Support it with diverse plant foods, fermented foods, and targeted probiotics if needed. Exercise is a daily brain medicine. It increases BDNF, promotes neuroplasticity, and enhances our mood naturally. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate activity weekly, and combine it with aerobic exercise and strength training for optimal benefits. Your diet is a long-term brain investment. A Mediterranean-style eating pattern provides the nutrients, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds your brain needs to thrive. Every meal is an opportunity to nourish your neurons. Sleep is your brain's detox time. During deep sleep, your brain washes away metabolic waste, including the proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. Prioritize 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. If you're not sure, a wearable device can help you track duration and quality of deep sleep and even rapid eye movement sleep. Now I'd like to venture into perhaps the most profound aspect of cognitive health, the science of consciousness and how your mind shapes your physical reality. This isn't mysticism, this is emerging neuroscience that's challenging conventional understanding of health and disease. We're learning that your brain is not hardwired. Every thought you think, every belief you hold, and every emotional pattern you repeat is sculpting your neural architecture. Recent research used advanced brain imaging shows that mindfulness meditation can produce measurable changes in brain structure in as little as 8 weeks. Dr. Sarah Lazar's groundbreaking Harvard study found that participants in an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program showed increased gray matter density in the hippocampus, crucial for memory, and decreased gray matter in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. Think about that. 2 months of mental training physically restructured their brains. But here's what's even more remarkable. These changes weren't just happening during meditation. The brain's default mode network, which is active when you're not focused on the outside world, showed lasting alterations. Meditators developed what researchers call trait-like effects, lasting positive changes in how their brains process information, regulate emotions, and respond to stress. Long-term meditators show increased cortical thickness in regions associated with attention, interception, which is the sense of internal state of your body, allowing you to perceive internal sensations like hunger, thirst, pain, and sensory processing. Their brains age more slowly. They maintain cognitive function decades longer than non-meditators. One study found that 50-year-old meditators had the same amount of gray matter as 25-year-olds in certain brain regions. This demonstrates the power of belief. The placebo, nocebo, and psychoneuroimmunology. So let me share something that will fundamentally change how you think about health and healing. The placebo effect isn't just mind over matter. It's your brain's inner pharmacy, actively producing real, measurable biochemical changes. When you believe that you're receiving treatment, your brain doesn't just imagine you're getting better. In a literal sense, it manufactures its own drugs. Studies show that placebo responses trigger the release of endorphins, dopamine, opioid receptors. Brain imaging reveals that placebos activate the exact same neural pathways as actual medications. In Parkinson's patients, placebos can trigger dopamine release equivalent to therapeutic doses of medication. But there's a dark side to every coin, the nocebo effect. Negative expectations create negative outcomes. In one study, patients given a placebo but told it was a drug with side effects experienced those exact side effects, including measurable respiratory depression in those told they were receiving opioids. Your beliefs about your health will become biological instructions to your body. This field of study, called Psychoneuroimmunology, has demonstrated that your thoughts directly influence your immune system. Researchers can now condition immune responses just like Pavlov conditioned dogs. Mice can be trained to suppress their immune systems in responses to specific tastes or smell. In us humans, positive beliefs and expectations enhance immune function. It can accelerate wound healing and improve treatment outcomes across virtually every medical condition studied. The implications are staggering. A meta-analysis found that 50 to 75% of antidepressant effectiveness comes from the placebo response rather than the drug itself. In irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, placebo responses can reach 40 to 50%. Even in conditions with clear biological markers, like Parkinson's disease, placebo treatments show 30 to 50% effectiveness. This isn't fake healing, it's your mind mobilizing your body's innate healing systems. So here's where consciousness meets biology in the most profound way. Epigenetics, the science of how genes are expressed, reveals that your thoughts, beliefs, and experiences literally change how your DNA functions. Now, stress doesn't just make somebody feel bad, right? It alters your gene expression throughout your entire body. Chronic stress induces genome-wide epigenetic changes, affecting genes relating to inflammation, immune function, and brain plasticity. Studies show that childhood trauma creates epigenetic marks that persist into adulthood, affecting stress response genes. But here's an important finding. These changes are reversible. Meditation, therapy, and positive lifestyle changes can rewrite your epigenetic code. A 2017 study found that yoga and meditation significantly reduced the expression of inflammatory genes. Mind-body interventions don't just make you feel better, they change your biology at a molecular level. Research on pregnant women show that maternal stress creates epigenetic changes in the fetus that affect the child's stress response system for their entire lives. But positive interventions during pregnancy, like stress reduction, social support, mindfulness, can create beneficial epigenetic patterns that enhance resilience in offspring. Even more astounding, some epigenetic changes can be passed to future generations. Studies in both animals and humans show that trauma experienced by grandparents can affect gene expression in their grandchildren through epigenetic inheritance. But this also means that healing in one generation can benefit future generations. When you heal your own trauma and stress patterns, you're not just helping yourself. You're potentially changing the biological inheritance you pass to your children and your grandchildren. This is how we can break the stronghold of so-called generational curses. Coming up is one of my favorite topics, the subconscious mind, the 95% of mental activity that operates below conscious awareness and runs your body's physiological systems. This isn't psychology, this is hardcore neurobiology. Your subconscious mind controls over 90% of your body's functions. Your heart rate, your blood pressure, immune responses, hormone production, cellular repair. These aren't random processes. They're orchestrated by deeply embedded programs formed primarily in your first 7 years of life. During early childhood, your brain operates predominantly in what we call theta, T-H-E-T-A, wave frequency, the same state as what we call hypnosis. You're essentially in a programming state, downloading beliefs, behaviors, and biological response patterns from your environment, from your parents, from your grandparents. These programs become the default operating system for your physiology. Research by Dr. Bruce Lipton and others show that these subconscious programs control your biology more powerfully than your genes. Identical twins with the same DNA can have completely different health outcomes based on their beliefs and their subconscious programming. One twin might develop diabetes and the other doesn't. One gets cancer and the other remains healthy. The difference? Their subconscious beliefs about themselves and their health, all other factors remaining the same. And this demonstrates that your attitudes, they're biological instructions. Studies show that optimists have stronger immune systems, lower inflammation, better cardiovascular health, and live an average of 7.5 years longer than pessimists. This isn't because they're lucky, it's because optimism triggers specific biological pathways. Positive attitudes increase production of DHEA, the so-called youth hormone. It enhances telomerase activity, slowing the cellular aging. They reduce cortisol, lower inflammation cytokines, and improve heart rate variability. Your attitude toward aging affects how quickly you age. Studies show that people with positive views of aging have better memory function, stronger immune response, and lower risk of Alzheimer's disease. Conversely, negative attitudes create a biological environment conducive to disease. Cynical hostility, chronic anger, and distrust increase risk of heart disease by 40 to 50%. Hopelessness, helplessness suppresses immune function and accelerates tumor growth in cancer patients. Depression isn't just a mental state. It's a whole body inflammatory condition that affects every organ system. But here's the empowering truth. You can reprogram your subconscious mind and therefore reprogram your biology. This is not wishful thinking. It demonstrates neuroscience. Techniques that access and reprogram the subconscious include things like hypnotherapy, directly accessing theta brain states to rewrite limiting beliefs. Studies show that hypnotherapy can alter immune function, reduce inflammation, and even affect tumor growth rates. EMDR and trauma therapies release stored trauma from the nervous system, creating measurable changes in brain function and stress hormone production. Visualization and mental rehearsal. Athletes have known for a long time that mental practice improves physical performance. But research shows visualization also affects healing. Cancer patients who visualized their immune system attacking the tumors showed enhanced immune markers and better outcomes. Affirmations with emotion, not just positive thinking, but combining affirmations with strong positive emotions creates new neural pathways. The key is emotional intensity. Your nervous system responds with felt experience, not just words. Heart coherence training. The HeartMath Institute has shown that creating coherence between heart rhythms and brain waves, achieved through specific breathing and emotional regulation techniques, can reprogram stress responses and improve everything from immune function to cognitive performance. Your brain's default mode network, which is active when you're not focused on tasks, is where much of your subconscious programming runs. This network maintains your sense of self. It helps you process emotions and generates the constant narrative in your head. With depression and anxiety, the default mode network becomes hyperactive and negatively biased. But meditation and mindfulness practices can rewire this network. Studies show that experienced meditators have a completely different default mode, less self-referential thinking, less rumination, and more present moment awareness. This isn't just feeling better, it's fundamentally changing the automatic programs that run when you're not actively thinking. You're changing your biological default settings. As research progresses in this field of study, we're entering a new era where consciousness itself becomes medicine. This means that your conscious intention might influence your biology in ways that classical physics can't explain yet. Studies on distant healing, intention experiments, and consciousness-based interventions show effects that challenge our current scientific paradigms. While this might be controversial, the data is compelling enough that institutions like IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and major universities are conducting serious research. One of those areas is biofield science. Your body generates measurable electromagnetic fields from your heart, your brain, and even individual cells. These biofields interact with your environment and other people's fields. Research shows that healers can influence patients' biofields, creating measurable changes in physiology. Heart coherence in one person can induce coherence in others nearby. Emotions are contagious through biofield interactions. This has profound implications for both health and healing. The electromagnetic field of your heart extends several feet beyond your body and contains information about your emotional state. When you're in a state of compassion and appreciation, your heart field becomes more coherent and can positively influence the other systems of people around you. Here's the critical understanding. Your mental state affects your physical health, which affects your mental state, creating a virtuous or a vicious cycle. Depression creates inflammation, which creates more depression. Chronic pain sensitizes the nervous system, amplifying pain signals. Anxiety disrupts gut bacteria, which produce less serotonin, which increases anxiety. But you can reverse these cycles. Exercise improves mood, which motivates more exercise. Meditation reduces inflammation, improving energy and mental clarity, making meditation easier and easier. Positive social connections boost oxytocin and immune function, making you more socially engaged and wanting to connect meaningfully with people. The future of medicine isn't choosing between conventional or functional approaches. It's the integration of them both. Imagine oncologists prescribing visualizations alongside chemotherapy, surgeons using hypnotherapy to improve outcomes and reduce complications, primary care physicians teaching patients to regulate their nervous systems as first-line treatment for chronic disease. The great news, this is already beginning to happen in leading medical centers, and it's something we promote at Renew Wellness Club. The Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, and Harvard Medical School all have integrative medicine programs. Insurance companies are beginning to cover mindfulness-based interventions because the data on cost effectiveness, of course, it's always about the money for them, is undeniable. Based on the research, here's your evidence-based consciousness action plan for the optimal health. Number 1, daily mindfulness practice. Even 10 minutes daily creates measurable brain changes. Apps like Headspace show clinical effectiveness, but any consistent practice works. Number 2, belief optimization. Identify and reprogram limiting health beliefs. If you believe that heart disease runs in your family, that belief influences your biology. So rather than that limiting belief, replace it with something like, I have the power to influence my genetic expression through my choices. Number 3, emotional coherence. Practice heart math or similar techniques to create physiological coherence. 3 minutes of heart-focused breathing can shift your entire nervous system. Next, some visualization for healing. Spend 5 to 10 minutes daily visualizing optimal health. See your immune system strong, your brain clear, your body vital. Social connection. Loneliness is as dangerous as smoking. Prioritize socializing with positive people. Even brief positive interactions can boost immune function. Lastly, purpose and meaning. Have a sense of purpose. Having a sense of purpose reduces all-cause mortality by 20 to 30%. It extends lifespan and improves every health marker studied. So here's the bottom line. You are not a passive victim of your genes or your past or your present circumstances. You are an active participant in your biology. Every thought you think and every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is instructing your 100 trillion cells. This isn't about blame either. Illness isn't a failure of positive thinking. This is empowerment. You have more influence over your health than you've been led to believe. And that influence can be cultivated, strengthened, and directed toward healing and thriving. The science is clear. Consciousness is not separate from your body. It's the conductor of the biological orchestra. When you change your mind, you change your brain. And when you change your brain, you change your body. Your brain's remarkable plasticity means that it's never too late to start optimizing your mental function. Whether you're dealing with brain fog, depression, anxiety, or simply want to maintain cognitive performance as you age, the tools we've discussed offer scientifically validated pathways to better brain health. Your brain, it has another level, one that modern life may have buried under stress or inflammation or suboptimal nutrition. But with the right approach, you can access that clarity, that mental sharpness or emotional resilience. The question isn't whether you can improve your cognitive health. The science shows you can. The question is, when are you going to start? Now let's step beyond the landscape of epigenetics and the subconscious mind. And let's venture into a dimension of reality that may explain how all of this is possible in the first place. I want to talk about an emerging frontier in the science of life. That is quantum biology. We've discussed the intricacies of biochemistry, the science of molecules, hormones, neurotransmitters, other cellular reactions. But what if all of that chemistry is merely the effect of a deeper or more profound form of energy? What if the chemical symphony of your body is being conducted by an orchestra leader operating in a domain beyond the periodic table? Quantum biology is a deeply researched field, quietly exploring how phenomena like quantum coherence or tunneling and entanglement, principles that govern the subatomic world, are essential to life itself. We know it happens in photosynthesis. Plants use quantum mechanics to instantly find the most efficient path for energy transfer. We suspect it's at play in enzyme reactions, making our biological machinery impossibly fast. But here's where the science takes a turn beyond our understanding of this physical plane. What if the human brain, which is the seat of our consciousness, is itself a quantum processor? The most compelling, yet probably the most controversial theory, suggests that consciousness is rooted in microtubules, these tiny, hollow, cylindrical structures found inside every neuron. Nobel laureate Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hamroff developed the orchestrated objective reduction theory. They proposed that these microtubules act as shielded quantum chambers. Quantum processes do occur within them. It suggests that consciousness itself arises not from a classical on-off firing of neurons, but from quantum computations happening deep inside the cell. If this is true, it suggests that our glands aren't simply instructed to secrete hormones by a purely chemical process. Instead, perhaps an exquisitely complex, ultra-low energy quantum field, a coherence of biological energy, is precisely what influences the autonomic nervous system, telling our glands how and when to manufacture these peptides and hormones that we've discussed. The very process of life may be the continuation of quantum measurement at the cell level. The intellectual challenge here is immense. Mainstream medicine and the powerful regulatory bodies like the AMA and FDA are deeply entrenched in the Newtonian, purely biochemical model of the body. If all healing and disease are reduced to chemical imbalance, the solution is always a chemical intervention or a pill. Acknowledging quantum biology would suggest that healing can occur not just with chemistry, but with things like quantum coherence, the elegant self-organizing energy of the system itself. This challenges the very foundation of pharmacological dominance, which is why, despite the compelling evidence in fields like photosynthesis, this area of study lacks the funding and attention it deserves. Acknowledging it would suggest that the greatest pharmacy is not found in the lab, but within the exquisitely beautiful design of our human body, controlled by an even deeper energy. And perhaps this deep, universal, organizing energy is what we have historically referred to as the spiritual world, an immensely complex, organized energy that permeates all matter, connecting us not just chemically, but coherently, and existing in a dimension we can't quite detect with our limited physical senses on a physical plane. This idea aligns beautifully with the study of theoretical physics as we measure the shadows cast upon us from the spiritual world. Or, if you're uncomfortable with that word, replace it with quantum. But the key here is to remain intellectually curious and open-minded, because a closed mind, it can't learn new things. If your conscious intention, the positive expectation of a placebo effect, can trigger the release of the body's most powerful biochemicals, it may not be simply a cascade of nerve firings. It may be the quantum entanglement of a focused mind with the subatomic components of your own cells, instantly commanding a new biological reality. The truth of human existence may be that we are, in a very real, scientific sense, co-creators of our own biology. We are not passive containers of chemistry. We are active, conscious participants in a quantum life. We possess the ability to tune the frequency of our being to one of chaos and disease, or to one of elegant coherence and wellness. The future of health is the integration of the chemical with the quantum. It's about combining things like peptide therapy with quantum coherence training. It's about aligning our biochemistry with our conscious, purposeful energy. This could be the actual quantum leap, and it could be the next generation in our human health potential. Now let's take a minute and think back across a millennia. If this quantum coherence thing is like the fabric of life, it begs a question that challenges our current, post-Enlightenment historical perspective. Did ancient civilizations know something that we have since forgotten? Were these deep, beautiful truths preserved, but within pages of sacred ancient texts and the magnificent ruins of impossible sites? For too long, we've relegated historical wisdom to mere folklore and pre-scientific myth. But what if these texts are more than stories? What if they are sophisticated, pre-mathematical descriptions of a quantum universe that our ancestors understood more than we give them credit for? perhaps not through instruments, but through profound internal technologies like deep meditation. Consider the parallels between quantum concepts and ancient cosmology. Consider ancient Hinduism and the illusion of matter. These theories, dating back thousands of years, describe the universe as Maya, or illusion of appearance, and the ultimate reality is a Brahman, or pure, undifferentiated consciousness. This eerily mirrors the quantum concepts of reality as fluid wave function that only collapse into solid matter upon observation. Niels Bohr and Erwin Schrödinger, pioneers of quantum physics, were known to be avid readers of Vedic texts, finding profound resonance between their experiments and this ancient wisdom. The book of Hebrews states that what is seen was not made out of what is visible. This one sentence is a profound, non-technical description of quantum reality. The visible world is created from the invisible, a source of information, energy, and potential, which is like the quantum field itself. It suggests that physical is merely an emergent property of a deeper, unseen quantum realm. The phenomenon of quantum entanglement, defying conventional understanding of physics, where two particles are instantaneously linked regardless of distance, communicating faster than the speed of light. This finds echoes in the spiritual concepts of non-locality and interconnectedness. When Jesus healed from a distance, or when Apostle Paul's handkerchief was said to carry healing power, these acts defy classical local physics. They are, in essence, demonstrations of spiritual non-locality, where intent and energy transcend physical constraints. Our faith, our prayer, our beliefs, the instructions of the mind may be a form of quantum entanglement with the field of all possibilities. The ancient, deeper knowledge may also explain the impossible mechanics seen in ancient sites. Our current, postmodern history can't account for seemingly impossible precision, scale, or astronomical alignment of places like the pyramids of Giza. Not just tombs, but structures aligned with a mathematical precision that incorporates constants like pi and the golden ratio, and points with uncanny accuracy to true north. The construction of these sites becomes a shadow of lost quantum technology, a physical testament to a time when humanity was more coherently attuned to the energy that binds everything together. Since then, millennia have passed, and maybe we'll never come to understand how they achieved these impossible feats. And our current paradigm of biochemistry alone has closed our minds to these grand possibilities. Acknowledging these parallels is not about replacing science with a myth. It's about recognizing that myth is often merely science we have not yet discovered, or in this case, maybe rediscovered. The quest for wellness, for the full expression of human consciousness, is not just a scientific one. It's an archaeological magnifying glass. It's about recovering lost instruction manuals. The energy that creates the quantum foam dictates the folding of proteins. It tells the glands to manufacture the peptides that we need. Is the same energy described by the sages. This understanding challenges us to elevate our practice of health from mere chemistry to something of conscious coherence. The time for intellectual curiosity is today, and the reward is amazing, a profound expansion of what it means to be well.